So our first message with questions here comes from CJB Studios, who says, I've been a pretty big fan of this series ever since I saw episode 98.1 talking about the THX demo discs. Speaking of which, before The Force Awakens was officially released on home video, were you one of those people who thought it would be THX certified? For me, it was kind of a mix of both because on one hand, I was hoping it would happen, but on the other hand, I knew it wasn't going to since THX certification on home video at this point was pretty much long dead. The reasoning behind this question is because, in my opinion, watching a Star Wars movie without the THX logo playing before it just isn't the same. The next question is a follow-up to the first one in regards to THX, because I remember seeing pictures of the bootleg 5-star collection DVD releases of the original trilogy that had the THX logo on the front cover. Did they have a THX trailer that came with it, even if they were just Laserdisc rips of either the special edition or definitive collection releases? Also, since you said that there were silver versions of them as well, did that mean that they would have been full screen with the gold ones being widescreen? And while on the topic of bootlegs, did you know that there were some bootleg DVD releases of Revenge of the Sith that came out on May 20th, 2005 during its theatrical run, such as the infamous Backstroke of the West version? So multiple questions there. So first off, honestly, when it comes to THX certification, I usually don't think about it. I'm actually kind of fascinated by this because we've got some questions over the years from multiple people about, does this have this THX trailer? Which THX trailer is it? And so on. And I've never really understood and didn't realize until I was getting those questions that there is sort of a fandom around THX itself. The THX branding, the trailers, the certification, the deep note stuff. I never really knew that was a thing, and I still don't quite understand the nature of that thing. So I wonder if somebody could explain to me, what is the fascination with the THX logo? What does it signify to you? Do you collect things that have specific THX trailers on it, or maybe THX like reels or something from theaters? What is it that drives that? It's not even really collecting, I guess, it drives that fandom. I would be curious to know that. Just as I'm sure someone would look at this stuff and be like, what in the happy hell is this man doing? Why does he have all those Star Wars home video releases? I'm curious about the fandom around THX, because it's not something that I'm particularly aware of much. So honestly, I don't think it ever would have crossed my mind to even think about whether there'd be anything THX related on anything with the new films at all. It was just kind of a thing back then. Right? And I kind of knew about what it was, why it was there, why the branding was there, and what the branding meant, and that, yeah, we'd see the branding on a lot of stuff. But beyond that, I don't think I really tend to give it much of a second thought. Likewise, the idea of a Star Wars movie without the THX logo before it feeling kind of weird, honestly, to me, that's not the case, because when I was watching Star Wars on basically a daily basis when I was younger, there was no THX mastering kind of certification video thing playing for me, because for me, when I was younger, what I was watching almost on a loop constantly was the 1992 Special Letterbox Collector's Edition, pre-THX certification. So for me, the THX thing was just something to fast forward through, to sit through, like, come on, get to the movie, get to the movie, get to the movie, once it actually existed on the films, rather than something to marvel at in its own right. Like, to me, a Star Wars movie doesn't start with a THX sound. A Star Wars movie starts with, the 20th Century Fox kind of fanfare. Having a Star Wars film without that, to me, feels weird. But otherwise, yeah, just not something that really, it was something that would really even be on the mind for me. As for those bootlegs, I actually dug them out. They're one of those bootlegs that I got to be able to debunk them within the book and whatnot. So let's talk about these, right? So we have A New Hope, which on the DVD itself it calls The New Hope. Empire, for some reason, with the Revenge of the Jedi teaser poster art for Return of the Jedi on the cover, and then Return of the Jedi here. And yeah, they all say THX down at the bottom. So this is something you see bootleggers do a lot, though. They slap labels on stuff just to make it look more legitimate. Like, there were no original trilogy DVD releases until 2004. And at that point, it is the 2004 DVD cuts. Period. End of story. Anything prior to that, anything that's not the 2004 cut or a later cut, cannot possibly be a legitimate DVD release, with the exception of those 2006, 2008 bonus discs, which really are kind of a new cut anyway, because it's an original film version of the opening crawl for A New Hope, and then slapped on a scan of the definitive collection. But that's a whole other thing we've gone into before. But you'll see stuff like that. Like in this case, 5-star collection. Well, there was such a thing as 5-star collection DVDs, but not for Star Wars. Independence Day, for example, got one in silver packaging. So that's using something else's branding to make this look more legitimate. The Dolby Digital, the DTS, the THX stuff, all slapped on there to make it look more legitimate. You look at the back, it's got some of the legalese that you would expect on a legit release. You have the 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment logo. You have a NTSC region code and whatnot. You have the old thing that indicates that there's some DVD-ROM content on there, and so on and so on and so on. All basically on there to make something that is a bootleg that is non-legitimate look slightly less illegitimate. Certainly more legitimate than when you would see some bootlegs that had, for example, Arnold Schwarzenegger listed as being part of the Phantom Menace. But it's all just BS. It's all just stuff to try to make something look more legit. And these in particular are factory pressed bootlegs. So you have these operations, usually overseas, where they are just churning out factory pressed bootlegs. These are not DVD-Rs. They look legit because they are factory pressed, but they are just not legit. They are fake, or at least they are illegitimate. So in any event, what these 5-star collection is, and I actually don't have a silver set, I'm assuming they're probably basically the same thing, is they are just Laserdisc rips, just straight Laserdisc rips of the 1997 special edition Laserdiscs. So basically it's this legitimate Laserdisc set from the US completely ripped and just slapped onto DVD. There, that one can go in the background now. And what that means is that when you actually look at the content on it, each film basically has the film, ripped from that, widescreen, and of course, letterbox widescreen basically, and of course, there is a trailer on there to make it look like it has some bonus features. But then when you have Return of the Jedi and you click trailer, it's not just the trailer, it's a trailer, and then all of those featurettes about what makes a special edition special that are on the beginning of the VHS cassettes all combined together into one thing. Ooh, did they do something special? No, that's how the Laserdiscs are. After the film's credits end, there's a trailer. For Jedi, after the film's credits end, there's a trailer, and then all of that as one thing. They just ripped it and slapped it onto a DVD. And they're so super excited. This always boggles my mind when bootleggers do this, because it's another obvious sign it's a bootleg. They hype up what kind of disc it is. Ooh, it's a DVD-9 collector series. DVD dual layer DVD. If you have to hype up that it's a dual layer DVD, that shit's a bootleg. But in any event, because it is a straight rip of this, it does start with the 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment logo. It does start with the Dolby Digital animation, where it's kind of like they're going through, an Indiana Jones-esque temple, and then Dolby Digital's up on the wall. And then, yes, it does have a THX trailer, if you want to call it that, but it's basically one with a little bit of text and then the THX Laserdisc logo. So it's not just a regular THX kind of thing. It's the THX Laserdisc specific logo that's on there. And then it goes straight into the film. And it is the 1997 special editions, because again, it is ripped directly off of this. I cannot imagine that the silver ones of these would somehow be full screen and they're doing something fancy with that. It's probably just a packaging variant of the bootlegs, maybe who was producing these factory pressed bootlegs back at the time, because as Laserdisc rips, there are no full screen Laserdiscs of the special edition. There are also no full screen Laserdiscs, as far as I know, of the THX Remastered Edition, if they were the version prior to that on those silver ones, but I think they were all the special editions. I know these gold ones are. And then, am I aware of the bootlegs of Revenge of the Sith from back in 2005? Yes. Yeah, early 2005 was really when bootlegs kind of came to the fore online, when it came to this sort of thing, and then you saw more proliferation of bootleg DVDs around that time. I mean, certainly they were around before these things, but you saw a lot of that around Revenge of the Sith. You had some that were actual like scans of stuff, though those tend to be more rare, whereas a lot of them were someone, with a camera in the movie theater recording the movie and then slapping that onto a disc. And you have to wonder if that was the first Star Wars film to really be hurt in terms of theatrical viewing, theatrical box office numbers, revenues, by bootlegs being not widely available, but certainly more widely available than what we had really seen prior to that, particularly through online downloads rather than physical discs. But I mean, that argument can be said throughout the history of bootlegs, right? Even today, when you have stuff that doesn't get released from Disney Plus on home media, then there's going to be bootlegs proliferating of it. Or before they get released, there'll be bootlegs proliferating of it. What allowed bootlegs like these, the 5-star collection, not only proliferate, but also, and this drives me nuts, also show up in some collector's guides, like the recent new edition of the Star Wars Super Collector's Wish Book, as if they are legitimate. Well, it was the fact that there were no DVD releases of the original trilogy until 2004, which meant that bootleg versions of earlier versions of the film could proliferate out there for people who just were eager for the 2004 discs that hadn't been released yet, eager, not knowing releases were coming soon, or just ignorant of the fact that the bootlegs that looked quasi-official weren't legitimate, who bought into the lie, essentially. But the same thing happens with Disney Plus now, where, they're not putting anything out when it comes to, the Clone Wars Season 7 yet, so bootlegs proliferate of it. And the question rises as to what are they going to do about it, if anything, because in the past it was, well, bootlegs will cut down on our box office. These days, is there enough revenue being pulled in by bootlegs of Disney Plus stuff to harm Disney Plus subscription numbers and revenues that way? I'd be curious to see some kind of study done on those two eras of bootlegs and the impact they had on the creators and their revenues. And how that might compare with Disney Plus. Which one hurt them more, bootlegs or suspending Jimmy Kimmel for a couple days?